Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, I guess it is. Sorry, I'm coming in here rather rushed from another meeting. Welcome to everybody that's here with us today and everybody else is online. This is our December 20th meeting in the Holstein Council Chambers. So I'll call the meeting to order at 1:01 or thereabouts. Councillor Shipston, you
I sure will.
will read the acknowledgement, please.
Today, as we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is a part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations, the Grand River, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. And the land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories, and may we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people.
Thank you, Martin. Madam Clerk, is there anyone registered for open forum?
No, none today.
Thank you very much. Can I have a confirmation of the agenda today? Jason and Martin, any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Is there any declaration of interest related to any matter on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise during the course of the meeting, feel free to declare it at that time. Delegations and presentations. I understand we have, well, I know we have one here, Christian Heritage Month Committee, Reverend Wayne A. Lewis and Leo Aserva-Pham. Sorry if I didn't get that right, but gentlemen, welcome. Come on up to the podium and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I know time is limited, but I have to share something. In the Bible, there's an account of the protagonist is a man named Mordecai. He is a Jewish leader, a wise man. His people were coming under a bit of oppression. In fact, the book of Esther is one of the only two books in the Bible.
Excuse me, sir, if I could just interrupt, I have a point of order here. Barb?
Through you, Mayor Milne, to the clerk, does our procedure bylaw allow for the video recording or recording devices other than what is being recorded here on our system?
It does not permit, no.
Okay, so I would ask anyone that was recording, please don't continue. And so I apologize, sir. Carry on.
No problem. The point that I was making is that his niece, someone that he mentored and loved, has ascended to a position of power. And for the most part, she was secure for what was about to take place. And through exchange of words, he said something to her that I found to be significant for today. He said, "Who knows whether or not you came into the kingdom for such a time as this?" And I feel that similar, that all these wonderful people here, yourself included, we have gathered here for such a time as this. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, and to the wonderful councilors. I'm joining you today to proclaim the good news gospel message that initially brought our nation together, and to share how the founders and farmers of Canada were able to unite the diverse people within a democratic experiment called Canada. Although I'm here standing with the privilege to present to you on this day, I'm here respectfully representing many who stand with us but are unable to make it. The list is long. People such as Carolyn Dyer, who in her own words is just a resident of Southgate, but we know her as a dynamic educator in Dundalk, and many others. Those who are standing behind me in the gallery, my brother who's going to be with me shortly, and those that are on YouTube watching and listening, and the countless others who have gathered today for such a time as this. While people of beliefs in God or higher power may differ when it comes to the universal truth that all citizens in Canada are united with our understanding of life and spiritual journey, That citizens are living souls, unique beings created for the purpose and for the reason alone. Citizens require the freedom to embark upon the respective faith mission in accordance with their own personal conscience and conviction. That is why it's important that Canadians to understand that the ideal and moral values which inspire Canada's first constitution, not just religious-based tradition, as today many secular-minded people think, but the inherent values that reflect the conscience and the faith of people throughout the country. It is in this spirit that the farmers and founders laid down a God-inspired foundation that resulted in Canada becoming a nation, a beacon of hope for people around the world this day. In essence, the farmers initially chose a unique, one-of-a-kind correlation of church and state within the Canadian political landscape. The democratic construct, an idea that envisions the future remarkably unique from that which they had previously known. Within the church and government, each stand as pillars, totally separated, yet fulfilling its own mandate under God, political realm. Listen, this is important. The government is responsible loosely for good governance and the material welfare, while churches and faith organizations represent specifically the hopes and the fears associated with the spiritual matters and life hereafter. To achieve this, a lengthy debate and deliberation took place. And at its core, the responsible government guaranteeing the political liberty and equality for all, a determination to prevent legislative or administrative decision makers from filtering the exercise, in other words, to prevent them from discriminating in future powers, while allowing us to have the rights of free men and free women to participate our deeply held beliefs and thoughts and opinions and consciences and convictions. This is why the preamble of the Constitution formally recognized Canada was founded upon the principle that recognized both the supremacy of God and the rule of law. One does not supersede the others. Neither one is applicable without the other, though, however. We see that this was when our premier, Minister John Diefenbaker, in 1960 affirmed the supremacy of God in the Canadian Bill of Rights. And even today, our current Prime Minister's father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, signed his name in the Canadian Charter Bill of Rights and Freedom. This means that every right and freedom guaranteed within the Charter are formally declared to be founded upon two principles. Together, as a prefatory words, were the governing points which inevitably holds this nation together. Why is that all important? Why am I saying all of that? I wanted to share something with you. We here, and you here, the elected leaders, through the democratic process, emanates this from teachings and truths that we find in the Bible, where time and again, leaders would stand up and say, yes, there's something important about the heritage that we have. It's so easy to forget when life goes on and we have gadgets and phones and thingamajiggies, that we forget what this nation, what Southgate was built upon. Faith, hope, trust, a heritage that we want to continue. But sadly, over time, we have lost the sight of our nation's foundation. When the Dominion of Canada was formed from sea to sea, based on Psalm 72:8, which states, he shall have dominion also from sea to sea and from river to the ends of the earth. This is the primary reason why so many Southgate's constituents are here today. We want to be enriched further the understanding of our Christian heritage, and therefore request, similar to the city of Brampton, and likewise the region of Peel School Board, that the township of Southgate too declare that the month of December 2023 and each December going forward to be Christian Heritage Month. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to bring this to you. I yield to my brother.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to present the proposal to proclaim the month of December as Christian Heritage Month this year and beyond. Canada is a nation founded on Christian values. In 1981, Pierre Elliott Trudeau signed his name to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The charter begins with, "Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law." There are 25 scripture verses from the Bible that are engraved in and on the Peace Tower of the Parliament buildings. These scriptures are a testament to the Christian heritage of Canada, not only in architecture and artifacts, but is imbibed in the cultural values of this nation. These are not just sayings that one may take lightly, but the word of God that was spoken over this nation. Words that have blessed Canada in ways beyond compare. Please allow me to highlight a few as we ponder on this fact. Canada's official motto, "From sea to sea," which is engraved on the east window of the Peace Tower, is based on Psalm 72, verse 8, which states, "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth." This scripture inspired Sir Samuel Leonard Tilley, one of our fathers of Confederation, to present the name Dominion of Canada in September of 1864. On his tombstone is written, "His trust was in Jesus." Over the west window is inscribed the verse from Proverbs 29:18, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." I thank God for the visionaries and leaders of Canada who dedicate their lives for the betterment of the people, for their zeal and determination to lead Canada to excel in every aspect possible. The scripture from Revelation 2:10 on a stained glass window, which states, "Faith unto death," clearly highlights values of trust, integrity, perseverance, and faithfulness. Teachings often resounded from pulpits in our churches. A bell in the carillon has a verse from Luke 2:14, which states, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill to all men." This verse is the reason we celebrate Christmas and commemorate the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. In my opinion, it also truly represents the Christian heritage that Canada is known to depict to the nations of the world. I stand here today before you all as a testimony that Canada strives to demonstrate these principles. I'm an immigrant that moved to Dundalk 7 years ago with my family. I must admit that sometimes I wondered how we would be accepted here in the community. It all soon faded away when I took my family to a local church. They literally embraced us and made us feel at home. Over time, my children have grown as proud citizens of this nation through the nurturing of not just their parents, but the impartation of Christian values from the church family. It is right for us to acknowledge that Canada is a nation that is not only blessed, but is a blessing to the nations around the world because of a Christian heritage. Therefore, let us remind ourselves, our children, and the generations to come of the Christian values of this great nation of Canada by celebrating Christian Heritage Month this December 2023 and beyond. Not only will this preserve the values and morals of this beautiful nation was built on, but also redeem our heritage that makes Canada glorious and free. Thank you.
I know. Thank you, sir. And I acknowledged I forgot to get a mover and seconder to receive the presentation before we started. So couldn't someone please do that? Martin and Barb, thank you very much. Is there any questions for our delegation regarding clarification as to what the ask is? I think it's pretty clear. They're asking to have December declared Christian Heritage Month, if I'm understanding correctly. Yes. Okay, Martin.
Couple of comments leading to a simple question. This has to be, over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of delegations come forth, myriad of subjects. And I can count on one hand declarations like this that I've read twice. This I've read 6 times now, and everybody at this counter, at this table, they wear different hats. And one of my hats is the fact that I am a devout Christian. I'm very proud of my heritage. And a logical man, the paradox being I believe in the Nicene Creed, and that I am a leader in a local congregation. So when I'm wearing that hat, I say, good on you. That's great. But when I walk through that door and come here, I have to put another hat on, and I have to think of the municipality. And quite frankly, being a logical man, my list of pros and cons is leaning to the cons, because for the township, this could open up a Pandora's box. And if you know that story, everything came out and that lid could not be closed. You mentioned Charter of Rights, Constitution. I'll throw into the mix the UN Charter of Rights 75 years ago. They all speak about the same thing, and the rights of people. And I can't get over the hinge point where if we have one faith-based group wanting something for their heritage, it will open the floodgates and everybody and their uncle will want their own month. And there'll be only 12 months. And I don't think it's fair for council to deny somebody something. So wearing that Christian hat, I approve, but the council hat, because of that, I can't see it. The you know, the minister mentioned church and state. I believe in the separation of church and state, and I believe in it spiritually, because my Savior also says, give to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give to God that which is God's. And my question is, well, when I look at the presentation after 6 times, I took away the historical connections, I took away the religious bias, and all I'm left with is information with a very definite political undertow, a political agenda, and a political posturing. My question is, what would you want from council if this does get passed by the federal government? What would you be asking for over and above a proclamation? Because that's where the hinge point is. Because if we do it for you, we have to do it for everybody else. And I don't think the government should get involved with faith-based organizations, especially if you're having a lot of events and you come asking for money. So if you could just clarify that, I would certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for your question and your frankness and your honesty. And I'm going to be the same way. Forget the collar, forget the suit. When I moved into Dundalk 5 years ago with my family, we were I don't know if we were, but we felt like the only Black family in Dundalk, to be honest with you. And many times I asked God and my real estate agent, why? Why do we come up here? Why do we come up here? Because it was culture shock. The horse and the buggies and the snow, oh my goodness, that's another story. But something interesting happened. my wife took a job as a bus driver for First Choice. And my wife's amazing. She made friends. And one of her colleagues told her about a little place named Priceville there's a cemetery, a black cemetery there. And I said, what? There was black people up here before? We did the research and I was blown away that there were settlers that looked like me and the diversity that stands behind me, the constituents behind us. And then I got to just research their stories. And what drove them was their faith in God. And that was powerful for me. Because if I'm honest, it wasn't the house prices that got us up to Dundalk. It was God speaking to me, telling me to come. I'm going to answer your question. This is not about a religious organization or a church. In fact, behind me represents multiple churches. This is not going to be an enrichment of my congregation or the Wesleyan congregation or the Catholic Church or so on and so forth. This is about preserving the heritage of Southgate, the Christian heritage of men and women, boys and girls who, through their faith, did great exploits. I'm sure you know this, Councilor Shipton. It says in Daniel, and those who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. That's what we're aiming to do, to continue the legacy, to preserve the legacy. And to be honest with you, that many of us, this collar-wearing pastor included, did not know, didn't realize about McPhail, the history behind McPhail and how powerful she was in her faith. Didn't understand that the church that I currently worship in has a tremendous history of doing things for Southgate, big things for Southgate, all because of their faith they removed. So that's what we're asking for. We're not looking for this municipality to cut us a check. We're not looking for, we're definitely not waiting for the federal government to move, because the way how our country is structured, and I'm not being little, is that we have the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. And so we as constituents are coming to our municipal government leaders to ask you to do something that is not unique, that has been done already. So if your concern was Pandora box, that box has been open, and I was going to speak in slang. That box has been open and released a long time ago. What we're asking for is that that you don't focus on the collar and the suit, but the heritage, that it won't be lost for the generations to come. Hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Monica? Sorry. No, I apologize. Unless council wants to waive procedure. Monica?
I would waive procedure because everyone took time to come. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm asking if we have to have a motion, we
Oh.
have to have a majority vote to allow waiver of procedure to allow someone else to speak that was not on the list here. And I apologize to the group if that seems prescriptive, but you can appreciate there's a long history there. Just to maintain order, that's how we have to proceed here. So, Monica, if you'd like to make that motion, we'll see if it has any support. Or did you have another motion?
I did have a comment, a motion, and I'm thinking about doing that motion to allow, because I just can't help but look at the audience in this gallery that hasn't been this full since our inauguration. So I know it's in the middle of the week, workday, cold, and coming from afar. I would move the motion that if council would support to allow some of the constituents, the residents who have a voice, if they would like to say something, we can maybe put a time limit. But I would suggest why not, if people have made the effort to be here, to waive procedure, if that's what the council would would like to support.
Okay, so the motion would be that we waive procedure to allow those to speak that wish to speak
With a time limit.
with a time limit. And do you have a time limit in mind?
3 minutes is always, I think, concise enough.
Sure,
Is that too short? But yeah,
that's perfect. Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? I don't see a seconder for that motion, so that motion fails.
okay.
Do you have something else?
Yes.
Please.
And I would look to you, Chair, to the clerk and yourself. I have comments, but then I also have I'm looking to move the amendment that council adopt December 2023 and beyond as Christian Heritage Month.
Okay,
So I am looking to do that, but I do have comments too, so I'm not sure which way to go.
okay, so if
First.
you're making the motion to amend the original motion just to receive, we'll see if that has a seconder. Okay? Is there a seconder for that amendment?
What are we doing again?
We're going to amend the motion. The motions currently says that all we're going to do is receive the presentation. So that just receives it for information. The motion is to amend that motion to actually declare December Christian Heritage Month, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is the amendment. So all we're doing now is looking for a seconder to amend the motion. So is there a seconder?
So if we amended, we're still gonna have a,
Absolutely. This
Yeah.
is not the vote to.
no.
To do that, it's the vote to amend.
Yeah,
the-
I'll second. it.
Okay, you'll second that. Okay, so now we have debate or discussion on the amendment, not the motion itself, but the amendment.
Okay.
Okay. Monica, do you have comments?
Yes. Thank you,
Please,
Chair, for
proceed.
walking us through that.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say good morning to everybody. Good morning to this full gallery. When I take a look over here, I'm just seeing local residents, lots of people from afar, and a lot of local leaders. Thank you for coming in. I'm a little bit overwhelmed and taken aback, to be quite honest, by looking at everyone here, which is a very big move of support for this. I couldn't help but when I was thinking about what's led me to move the amendment for this, and I really appreciate Councillor Shipston's points, and I appreciate them so much because that is the first reactions and thoughts that many people would have. But I think that one of the points that the presenters have made is that this is clearly not about religion at all. This is absolutely the least thing that it's about. It's about preserving heritage. And I couldn't help by maybe my 6th or 7th time, like you, Councillor Shipston, in reading about this, that as a first generation born Canadian to Sikh Punjabi parents who were immigrants here at 20 years old with a suitcase and a dream, that I remember being able to be in this great nation and being able to honor our Sikh heritage and Sikh religion and Sikh observances. But my parents made sure, I remember clearly, they had a big Bible that they put on the altar next to the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is the holy book of the Sikh people. And when that holy book of the Bible was placed next to the Bible that we followed, it was a symbolic reminder of the heritage in Canada which afforded all the other heritage that came after to be able to celebrate those things in this great nation of Canada, which when we take a look at this gallery, we can see the diversity, the inclusion, the love, the unity that is right here in this room now. So what I'm saying is to say this: during my sociological studies at the University of Waterloo and in my anthropological studies at the University of Waterloo, and my deep study of Hinduism and world religions at University of Waterloo and elsewhere, and my travels that I've had around the world, to separate spirituality from the people would be the very thing to look at them and say that they don't have an identity. So to reduce it down from heritage to religion is a very sad thing to do, in my opinion, and my studied opinion. What I would say to that is this: heritage is much more than religion. Heritage is just like the land acknowledgement that we do, is to honor the First Nations, the Indigenous people, not because of their religion, but because of their heritage in this country. It's the same thing with the Christian people. It's not about the religion at all. Religion is but an aspect. But what is being asked today, from my understanding, is that Township of Southgate recognize the deep roots of the heritage of Christians who have come before, and that they have built this country up as well. And even in my studying of this, and this is the purpose of heritage, is the education piece. So when you look at heritage, you're looking at education and awareness, the cultural infrastructure in the buildings, which we heard several times about Parliament Hill, the buildings, the engraving, the celebration and unity that brings everyone together, and the preservation of a people who have been giving so much to this country and to this nation and to this township. And this is what the Heritage Month would do. It has nothing to do with religion at all, to be quite honest. It has everything to do with the history of this place. And even in the studies, when you take a look at Melanchthon, the township of Melanchthon is named after Philip Melanchthon, who was a direct disciple of Martin Luther, who was part of the Protestant Reformation. And so just south of us, just learning about this delegation, that caused the education for me to even learn about that. So when you look at historysouthgate.com, I could have got that wrong. There's so much information about the history and the heritage, not the religion. And being raised as a Sikh Punjabi person and understanding, sometimes it takes people from the outside of something to kind of see and understand that is what it's really about in terms of the importance. And that is a beautiful thing in itself. When I remember hearing the Honorable MP Tim Uppal and the Honorable MP Garnett Genius and the Honorable MP Pierre Poilievre all speak, and Tim Uppal is a Punjabi Sikh turban wearing, Sikh practicing MP currently in Alberta, speak on the importance of Christian Heritage Month, and that the other people who do not even follow Christianity can see the importance, and it be echoed by Garnett Genius and be echoed by Pierre Poilievre and so many more. I think that it requires us to also look at our constituents within our jurisdictional municipality in our borders who have showed up to support this. So because I have seen racism growing up, because I've been beat up for my color, because I've seen my father spit on because of his color, because I've been secluded and isolated in my classrooms, I love this great nation because of the heritage in this country, that despite those things, that we would still be able to support one another and recognize others in our area for the heritage that have afforded us so much. Instead of it becoming picking one thing over another, this will actually bring an inclusivity, just like in this room today. And I am passionate about it. So I'll take a moment back, but this is, there's so much that I've learned in the last week. And even in speaking to the individuals who brought it forth, I find it to be a very moving thing to see what is happening here. And I'll end for now with this. From my understanding, and I could be wrong, forgive me, but the city of Brampton in 2019 adopted this Heritage Month in the one of the most diverse cities in Ontario. And it was seconded by, again, a Sikh Punjabi councillor seconded the motion in 2019. And they brought it forth. And now Mayor Patrick Brown, he has continued, and I've seen his videos, has been continuing to speak on that even the Christians, Carolyn Dyer's letter was so important because she highlighted Black History Month, Ramadan, Diwali. She highlighted our celebration for many different events. And even myself with a resident recently, I celebrated Hanukkah in their home. I wasn't picking Jewish people over another or Diwali over somebody else. It was not that. It was an inclusivity. It was a celebration. And I believe that the Christian people who have helped to build this nation and have a strong heritage here, they deserve it too. And one last point about what Councillor Shipson said, which was very important, where he spoke about, many will come out. Well, the heritage, when to consider something to have a heritage to a certain degree, you have to, I believe, have about 100 years of roots in history. But we do know at a federal level that they're doing it in other ways. But sometimes people will say more the merrier, and just a simple request of identifying a month as Christian Heritage Month with, perimeters in place, that is a small gift or act to give with the power that's been entrusted to us as municipal leaders, that's been given to us by the people and constituents sitting here, that if they have a request, it is a relevant topic within our jurisdictional municipality, that would be a great thing that would unify the community in such a big, impactful way that would bring on legacy. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Monica. Is there anyone else would like to speak to the amendment? No? Oh, Barb, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Milne, and thank you for your presentation. And thank you, Reverend Lewis, for calling me. And as I understand, you've reached out to most, if not all, of council members, as did Councillor Singh Sours. I guess where I go to is your presentation on page 20 and 21, where it talks, I understand the heritage aspect of it, and I understand the importance of recognizing our various heritages. What I find is some of the language is that about inclusivity and the desire to hold events where only the teachings of Christ is at the forefront. And I understand, I was raised in, as Councillor Shipston was, in the Christian faith. I would like to see where the federal government has only just heard first reading. Most, if not all, proclamations that we have considered have already received royal assent from the federal government. And as a nation, I think it's important that we respect everyone's ability to, under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the freedom of religion. And I think we demonstrate that every day at our events, where everyone is welcome, regardless of faith, regardless of background. And we are really striving to encourage those interactions so that we are truly a welcoming community. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Barb. Any other discussion on the amendment? Jason?
Yes, yeah, Martin made very good points. So did Barb. I guess I probably look at it a little different way. I'm a Christian, born Christian. I haven't been in church in 25 years, but this country was based on the premise of Christianity, and I feel that's been under attack the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even more. I get the argument, and I'm the first one to say at other meetings, we can't open the floodgates to everybody. And if you are coming for money, then yeah, that's not what this is about. I hope. I think to just proclaim that month. Everything we say it's political. Everything's political. Everybody's scared to say something because it's so political and politically correct. Well, we have other months for other stuff. We can name what they are. And nobody ever says nothing about that because everybody's scared nowadays. So if it's just coming to recognize the month for what it is, I don't think it's a race thing. It's just this country, this community was based on Christian values, Catholic, Anglican, Protestant, whatever. I don't even know all of them. So to me, I think it's I would support it on that fact alone. Like I said, I hope 20 different churches or whatever aren't going to come asking for money, but for that, we got to preserve our heritage. And when I look out here, there's different colored people, and to me, that's not what it's about. It's about preserving the heritage, your heritage. And if you don't have that, in my opinion, you have nothing. So I think I will support it.
Thank you, Jason. Any other comments, questions? Monica?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. Just to the points of Councillor Rice and to Deputy Mayor DeBreen, what everyone's saying, I think that just to kind of flatten the balloon of the nervousness or scared or the floodgates opening, this really is just to acknowledge, from my understanding and my discussions and my very lengthy discussions about what is the purpose, why is this, and all that, what's the why in all this. It's truly what Councillor Rice just mentioned. To my understanding, it's just to recognize, and when something is recognized by the government, it says something. It actually draws in more diversity and inclusivity, which is also part of our 5-year plan that we just came out of, and we're looking to continue in with the Township of Southgate. I'm going to share something. I can't share the person's name because they would be here otherwise. But they were in tears on Monday night. And they were saying, and I'm only bringing this now because Councillor Rice has mentioned that people are literally scared, and you are not wrong. And that is very hard for me to hear, which would be for all of us. That why is anyone of any faith or group so deathly scared to tell people what they believe in fear of backlash, retaliation, being made fun of? That is not, well, I did grow up in that type of certain racial things that have happened when I was growing up, and I've heard all the type of jokes that were made for my color and where we're from. But that over time, right? We're not to pin one against another, but just me just sitting here from immigrant parents on this side of the table says something about our great nation. And seeing everyone in this place, the gallery right now, says something about Southgate. So this is really a place of where the resident has said to me, I would, want to come to support this. I saw this thing, and Monica, I want to ask, what is this about? And I said, from my understanding, this is what it is. Well, I support it, but I will never say I support it out loud because I will be judged. And that really hurt me that anyone from any group would be that scared. And then I also have children in school. And my daughter is very involved with school, part of head of council, part of student council, part of many different things. And she also was sitting at the table one day, very upset. And I said, what is wrong, Bella? Anyone who knows Bella knows my daughter. And she says, I love Chinese New Year, Ramadan, Easter. She goes, I love everything. But when I want to celebrate Christmas, we're not allowed to say Christmas sometimes in school. Because if someone has told her, it will be looked at as offensive. But why is that? But when we could have a show here of signaling to the community that, you know what, if you are celebrating Christian Heritage Month, we want to learn more about the roots here. We want to understand more. We want to celebrate with you, just like we do Black History Month, just like we do for Ramadan, just like we did for Diwali, which brought out almost like 10 delegates. We had 9 sponsors. The room was packed. Dancing with Deputy Mayor, and the others. That was a celebration. And Diwali is drawn from Hinduism. And in my Hinduism studies, you cannot separate spirituality from the people. And even in the Book of Acts, from my understanding and research, the Book of Acts, the name Christian wasn't even from the Christian people. The name Christian came from the leaders of that place in a derogatory remark. And they were actually known as the people of the way. What is the way? The heritage. So today, I would just also say that in the future, what could also happen if we stop and just focus on, everyone's going to want to have something, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing as long as things are done orderly and understanding way, and remembering heritage can be 100 years plus of history. So there could be different things looked at. Other groups may be afraid to come forward. Other groups may be afraid to say, well, I don't think that I'm really welcomed here, or how can I bring this up? So I don't think that this is such a huge, crazy request. I think that I'm still like, let me take my glasses off. I am still moved by taking a look at this room. I see the hands and feet of people who are in the churches, in the outreach, in the areas where they're serving day in and day out, who have an actual history and lineage of their families, whose fathers, and we just heard here, have Christian heritage. And I find it so interesting and wonderful that we will have people of the Christian faith, and then people who are not of the Christian faith. Even my mom, who is not of the Christian faith, would say, of course, we must have a Christian Heritage Month. And she is a Sikh practicing Punjabi. So it's a little bit for me to understand the hesitancy of that regard when people themselves have that heritage, that if the people of Southgate, who have placed us in the entrusting of the power to make these decisions, to respond to such a request, and we have people from far and wide, my eyes are still absorbing, to acknowledge and give them something. Now, we have a budget coming up, and that budget requires a lot of work that's going to have a lot of impact. But when it comes to some requests like this is a small work to say yes to that will have a huge impact to the people. It will have a huge impact to the hearts and minds. And in 5 days, all of us are going to be celebrating a government recognized stat holiday worldwide that everyone gets to enjoy, and it's government recognized. And so that's not because of the religion, it's because of the heritage. And just like in Easter. So I wanted just to respond to some of those comments there. And with every history, friends, good, bad, ugly is in every country, every history, every people, everywhere, right? Like every single background. India, Canada, Europe, Africa, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, but we want to focus on the good, on the moving forward, and the jurisdictional responsibility that we have within our municipality, that if we were to wait, oh, someone told me a really good, sorry, I gotta end with this, a really good saying that I believe Southgate, I learned in Southgate. If you wait for the federal government, it's like trying to make molasses in winter. I said it right? So this is where I'm saying that if we keep waiting for the federal and provincial, we are the grassroots. We're so blessed, right? To be able to be at the grassroots level and being able to make decisions that will affect our community and our people. And because my family and myself was afforded such love and beautiful things growing up, and it was hard, but we made it in this country. I believe that Christian Heritage Month, a proclamation and declaration from the council, would be such a unifying thing, and within parameters, within understanding that that's what they're asking, an acknowledgement that we've already afforded to others. So I wanted to just offer that.
Thank you, Monica. Councillor DeBreen?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Normally, we don't proclaim forever and ever. We proclaim on a annual or as requests come forward. And we didn't proclaim Diwali or South Asian History Month or Pride Month. We weren't asked, but simply any proclamation that we have done in my terms on council have been done on a annual by request basis. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? And the amendment, of course, is to support the ask.
Yes.
Are we ready for the vote? Martin,
I request a recorded vote.
okay? Any other discussion? Jason?
To Barb's point there, could we put a time limit on it for 2 years, a year, or I don't know, is that something?
If
We
somebody,
gotta change the motion.
if somebody I would accept that as an amendment to the amendment. That gets a little bit thick, but we can do
Yeah,
it.
no, that's fine. I'm not doing it.
All right. And I appreciate Monica's distinction of upper tier, lower tier. Of course, at the municipal level, we're the level closest to the people, so to speak. You can catch us in the produce section at the grocery store. You don't always get your local MP in the grocery store, but nonetheless, excellent distinction. Are we ready for the vote? Monica?
Just quick ask, just to the point of Councillor Rice, if the council would feel more, what's the word? Supportive to this, that there would be a time limit or another, could that be a point of just discussing, or does it have to be moved first and then?
I think we probably should have an amendment to the amendment, because the original amendment is to support the ask, and the ask was for December of this year and going forward to be recognized as Christian Heritage Month. If you wanted to, or anyone wanted to amend that to say just this year, I'd accept that. And then next year we can consider it again if somebody brings it forward, or it can stay where it is. Up to you.
May I follow up?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, thank you for that understanding. And I guess what I'm asking is for collaborative approach, if that would be something, oh gosh, because I know you're saying to do the amendment to the amendment, but just to
Well,
have.
let me put it this way
Yeah.
then, if I could just interrupt for a second.
Yes, sir.
I would accept a friendly amendment. And friendly, that means we don't need to go through the motion and stuff, but if you and your seconder agree to just limit it to this year, I'd accept that. So what's your wish? Or leave it the way it is, this year and going forward.
Mm.
Can everybody hear that clock from whatever show that is ticking in the background?
I just find that, thank you. Wow. They don't allow recesses at this point, right?
No.
Oh, see? Oh. So,
Sorry, I didn't.
So I'm going to say, I'm going to say the motion, the amendment will stand as it is.
okay,
So it'll be this year and going forward.
okay,
Okay. We're ready for the vote.
record.
Madam Clerk, would you take the poll, please?
Yes, through you, Mayor Milne. Maybe I'll just read it so everyone's under the
Please.
correct understanding. So the motion or the amendment to the motion is be resolved that council amend the motion to add a second clause that states that council proclaim December 2023 and beyond as Christian Heritage Month in the Township of Southgate. Councillor John is absent. Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Singh Soares,
Yes,
Mayor Milne,
No.
Councillor Shipston. Councillor Ferguson,
No.
Deputy Mayor Dobreen.
No.
By a vote of 4-2, that has lost.
Okay, the amendment has lost, but the motion to receive for information is still on the floor, unamended. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, not seeing. Go ahead. Barb.
Just point of clarity. So if in the fall of next year, what procedurally, we receive this for information, that doesn't prohibit anyone from coming forward. Is it 12 months or is it, this is just received for information at this point?
Yeah, through the mayor. It's just received for information, so nothing would prohibit it. There's no time limit on it, is what I'm saying. So It's
Okay.
just received for information.
Okay, thank you.
You're good.
so just point of
Monica, go ahead.
clarity. So does that mean that it could be brought back in fall? Is that what was
Yep.
just asked?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready for the vote to receive for information. All those in favor? That is carried. So I want to thank you, Reverend Lewis and Mr. Aservatham. Did I get that right or close? Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I presume most are here for this presentation. Thank you very much for coming out. I know it's a lovely trip across from Dundalk to Holstein. Now you know more about your township. That's great. So thank you all. So yeah, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but honest to God, I think you probably have more to do with the rest of your day than stay here, but you're more than welcome to stay.
Could we, yeah.
Can we recess?
Yes, we can recess let's recess until 2:00. Okay, I think it's 1:00. We'll bring the meeting back to order. The next order of business is the adoption of the minutes from December 6th of this year, council and closed session minutes. Mover and seconder, Jason, or Jim rather, and Barb. I'm gonna, yeah, anyway.
Time doesn't give you brain. No, sorry, that's just.
There's a rule when you're in a hole, stop digging. Okay, we're so we have it moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Reports of municipal officers. First is the clerk's department. There's a motion or an item here regarding the Southgate Community Fund Management Committee recommendation. Someone care to move that, please? Barb, seconded by Martin. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Milne. I'm gonna actually, Akash is on the screen here with us. There he is, turning his camera on. His camera may be delayed.
Looks like it.
Anyway,
Oh.
the Community Fund Management Committee met at their last meeting and passed the motion there that is in the report. And that kind of prompted staff to look into the agreement that we had with the foundation and discovered a few things in there that I've included in the report. So I think at this point, I'll just take questions and we can discuss, and Akash and Holly as well wrote the report. They can help fill in the gaps as they attend the committee meetings, so.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. Cash, do you want to add anything?
So remember that piece of advice about the hole and stopping? That might come in handy for me shortly. So if it gets too deep, let me know. So following the writing of this report, we looked into our past budgets to try and figure out where this money was being budgeted for. And we have noticed that council did in fact approve $30,000 in 2022 and 2023 to go to the Community Foundation Grey Bruce. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to track the payment to Community Foundation Grey Bruce on that. The only payment I've been able to track has been for 2021, which I believe was the first year of the $30,000. And the note that I'm seeing in our past budgets is that you were going to make a 30,000 donation each year for 5 years. So staff would be looking to rectify that because it has been approved in prior budgets. So I wanted to make council aware of that. And if there's any further questions after that, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Cash. Barb?
Thank you, through you as chair of the committee. Thank you, Akash. Did I hear you correctly that it was budgeted, but they never received the funds?
That is correct, yes.
We don't know if the check was issued or if it just wasn't ever cashed. They never received the funds, which we confirmed at our previous committee meeting.
That is
And speaking for previous term, I think our intent was, as you said, Akash, the intent was to have $30,000, $15,000 from the Eco Park Fund and $15,000 from the Solar Park Fund donated to build a fund of up to $150,000, which could grow and be awarded out. So given that information, and since it was budgeted through you, Mayor, Akash, are you saying that we would backdate and send that 60,000 or we need a motion to continue that practice and include it in the budget, and that the township forthwith
Nope.
include the past 2-year contribution? I'm asking.
In my opinion, through your worship, to the deputy mayor, in my opinion, council has past budgets that specify that we would be making this contribution. So at this point, staff would go out and action that item, and we would have the funds go out to Community Foundation Grey Bruce without any further direction from council.
Thank you, Cash. Barb?
Thank you very much. That's good news. And then we would carry on with our budget for 2024. I don't see any need to amend the motion then.
I don't think there's any direction given from council, or I don't think there's any direction needed from council beyond to acknowledge that this is what's going to happen. Correct, Cash?
That is correct, Your Worship. Council has already passed the contribution of the 60,000, 30 for 2022 and 30 for 2023. Council will still get to debate the $30,000 contribution for 2024 when we get to budget deliberations.
Okay. So Madam Clerk, how would you like this motion to read to fulfill what we just discussed?
I just want to, through you, Mayor Milne, confirm with Akesh that do you need council direction today to put the 30,000 in the budget, or are you going to do that because that's what we've done in the past and then council can discuss that at the table during budget? Or do you want direction today that they direct staff to put it into the budget?
So based on what I've seen in the previous budgets, to me, and based as well on what was said at the community foundation, or sorry, the community fund management committee meeting regarding council's intent around the contributions, I think I'm comfortable with having the line in the 2024 budget, and council can debate that when we get to it.
Yeah.
So in that
Lindsay?
case, then we don't need further direction.
No action?
No, Akesh
Okay.
is,
So we'll just
What?
vote on the recommendation as it is. Sorry, I have Jason first. Go ahead, Jason.
So they did not receive the funds in 22. Is that, am I hearing that?
22 or
And we're
23,
approving, or through 23.
Right.
Yeah.
2
Correct.
years.
So maybe this is off topic, but when it was approved in the budget and we can't track it, what does that mean? Where did it go then? Or did nobody
Nobody
do it?
wrote-
or-
nobody
okay,
wrote the
okay.
check.
I just,
Is
yeah.
what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
It never got sent. Right.
Oh,
So we
Yeah.
still have that 60,000 in reserves. Is that, if I understand
that
correctly?
was my-
That
That
is
is
correct,
correct.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Barb.
I'm just wondering if for clarity and having it clean, I know you like to have it clean, is would an amendment that council direct staff to include the $30,000 in the 2024 budget for consideration?
we can, yeah.
We don't need to
Either
talk
way, yeah.
about direct staff to pay it forthwith.
No.
We don't have to do that
No.
because it's been approved, but I'm just wondering for
But we've
cleanliness.
But we've already, in past motions, committed ourselves
Yeah.
to the 30,000 per year in the budget. So it would be included in the 24 and 25 budgets automatically. Then during the budget discussions, we can either leave it there or take it out.
If that.
Yeah, and yeah, sorry, through you. I think that's fine. When we wrote the report, we weren't aware that like this has been new
Right.
information. So it really, we're just receiving it for information at this point,
Okay.
and staff know what to do.
Correct.
So I think we're fine.
All right. Martin,
Yeah, that is good news. Just one question. I do remember when it was, what, 3-4 years ago, that it was 15,000 from each for
Mhm.
30 every year. Was it capped at 150,000?
that's, my understanding was that was the extent of the motion at that time. Certainly we can change that, in 2026.
Well, in 2026, yeah, because it's the interest off that money that goes
Correct.
out. So maybe we should
It's an
talk
endowed,
about
yeah,
actually adding it
yeah, it's an
if
endowed
it's
fund.
from the
that they don't-
funds. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next motion, or the next item is regarding the council calendar amendments. Someone want to care to move that, please? Jim? Jason, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Milne, the OSAM conference falls right on our council meeting day, and I think it's the first day now. They do keep doing a bit of changing with their schedule, but it's definitely falling on that day, and we have a few attending from here, and I believe you're attending with the county, so that would mean we wouldn't have a quorum. So we are asking that council move it to the day before on the Tuesday, so we don't have to cancel the meeting.
Okay. Any mover and seconder? You're moving that? Thank you. Seconder, Martin? Oh, I already got a mover and seconder. All right. Well, we guess we don't need any more. Barb?
Just a quick question. What does moving it back a day do to staff's timeline for issuing the agenda and getting all of your reports? Does it all just move up a day? Is it just a matter of a couple of hours?
Through the mayor. I would have probably still done it on the Thursday, but that would take a day away from you guys to review. So we can try to get it out on the Wednesday. The reports from staff are due earlier than that, so that wouldn't be a problem from us. But yeah, we can discuss internally and
Okay,
come up with a plan.
excellent. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lindsay. Moving on to Public Works Manager Jim Ellis. He has a report here regarding product care, specifically municipality lighting services agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jason, seconded by Jim. Welcome, Jim.
Good afternoon, good people. This is a fairly simple agreement. It was covered in the programs before. We don't receive a whole lot for it, but it's just a formality of having the agreement with the programs changing into the pros taking their part of the action into it. So
Very good. Thank you. Any questions regarding this one? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Jim. HR Manager Kayla Best. Kayla's online. She has a report here regarding health and safety policy. Someone care to move that, please? Barb, seconder. Jim. Welcome, Kayla. Floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a fairly simple report. We bring it annually to have our health and safety policy reviewed and reapproved each year as per legislation. This year, the Health and Safety Committee decided to not make any changes. So it is the same policy as last year.
All righty. Well, that seems straightforward enough. Any questions related to that? Martin?
Good afternoon, Kayla. I was just wondering, as you say, straightforward. But if there are any changes to WMIS or the Health and Safety Act, you get to do that automatically. You don't have to bring that before council, do you? Like when there's changes like that that's just automatically done, right?
Kayla?
Yes, that's correct. So last year, what we did is we broke out our health and safety policy from our health and safety manual so that we don't have to keep bringing things like that back to council. So we can make those changes internally.
Very good. Thank you, Kayla. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kayla. Next is our Economic Development Officer, Brenna Carroll, who's here with us today. She has a report regarding Community Improvement Plan update. Someone care to move that, please? Barb and Monica, thank you. Brenna, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And good afternoon, Council. This is presenting a report on the Community Improvement Plan. I've reviewed the plan to evaluate why we've had so little uptake. I've done that by evaluating the application and discussing with the grant recipients. And I have a few proposals for alterations to the application and various aspects of the plan to ensure that the most business owners as possible are able to access the grant. And it's all highlighted in the report, and I'm open to answer any questions that you might have.
Most excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions? Barb?
More of a comment, and I just wanted to thank Brenna for collaborating with other economic development officers. The one thing that we've noted at the county level is the engagement between the county and the lower tier municipalities, all working together to help the businesses thrive. And simplifying the application is a great first step. How are you, through you, how are you communicating this CIP? Because we still hear from businesses that didn't seem to know it existed.
Thank you for the question, and through you. So once I have the application approved, I hope to do some social media posts on it, and I have made a little graphic to hand out to business owners. I'm also hoping to have this approved prior to our BRNE so that when I'm going around and interviewing and surveying businesses, I'll be able to connect with them and tell them more about the grant. So tell them first person and hand them physically the application. And thank you for acknowledging the collaboration with other municipalities. I do want to acknowledge that I did closely look at the town of Hanover's application, because I appreciated how it was 4 pages. So I do want to acknowledge that it was pulled from there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Brenna. Moving on to the planning department. The first is zoning bylaw amendment from Van Vleeman. Who is online? There's Bill. Welcome, Bill. I need a mover and seconder for this. Jim and Martin. Floor is yours, Bill, and welcome Victoria as well.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Good afternoon, members of council. This is a proposed rezoning for property that we discussed at Committee of Adjustment, a severance. At that time, we had a couple of options before council. One was to adjoin this severed farmland to the Terpstra farm to the north, and the other was to keep it separate and rezone to prohibit future residential construction on that farmland. So the issue at the time was access from MTO, and we've been advised through Alicia and Victoria and other correspondents that they believe they can get a farm entrance. So their preference was to keep this lot separate. And so the zoning bylaw that we presented to you today would rezone the severed lot to prohibit its development, any residential development on that property. The bylaw also addresses the retained lot. And in the report, there's a little sketch with some partial red buildings shown on the retained lot. And we've analyzed that whole property from a zoning perspective. And so the lot is slightly less, has slightly less lot area and lot frontage than would be required in a typical R6 type residential zoning. So the bylaw also addresses that reduced lot area, but the setbacks and lot coverage and all other provisions in the R6 zone would be met. So it's our recommendation that you consider this matter further, and it's part of implementing the conditions of severance for this property on Highway 6.
Thank you, Bill. So in some respects, it's very similar to a surplus farm dwelling severance. Yep.
Yes, it is.
Any questions from council? Barb?
Just one quick one, Mayor Milne, through you to Bill. We can approve this, and if MTO has any surprises that come forward down the road, it would just revert back to it becoming part of the property to the north?
Right. Good question. If yes, the council could approve this, and then it would be zoned in this fashion. If we get further into implementing the conditions of severance and MTO changes their mind, then what the Terpstras would have, they would have to join that property to the north, but their property would still be rezoned to prohibit residential development on it. So they may need to reapply if they wanted that lifted, but in other words, we're doubly protected in a sense. If we're worried about future residential development on it, even if he is forced at the last minute and there's a surprise that he can't get access to the highway, he then has an issue with that property being used residentially, because as a municipality, if you pass the bylaw, you'll have already prohibited residential development on it. So he's assuring us that he believes he can get an entrance. I don't think he actually has that permit yet, but so there is a tiny risk, but the risk is entirely with him, that he'll have to merge the property, and then he'll be stuck with the merged property not being allowed any residential development, which probably isn't a huge issue, but it was not his preference.
Thank you. Barb, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. And in the interest of the applicant, the Terpstras, would it make sense to put a hold on this pending them satisfying the MTO entrance? Then they wouldn't have to, I mean, maybe they would still have to come back after a certain period of time, but it would maybe protect them in that they wouldn't have to go through this whole process again. I'm wondering. But I'm looking to the planner because he's the expert.
Yeah, I mean, it does accomplish the rezoning on the retained parcel, which is needed. So, and again, they would only have a problem in the future if they did end up merging the property, if they wanted to put a secondary unit or housing for, say, farm workers, that kind of thing on that parcel, then they would have an issue and they'd be back to rezone you. So they rezone the property. So again, which is costly for them, but the risk is entirely theirs. If council wants to hold it back, we can. We had this discussion, the three of us, about, well, where were they on this entrance permit? Do we have it? And we're pretty confident they're going to get it, but you're absolutely correct. We don't have that permit, but they are telling us they wish to go ahead in this fashion. So it's up to council if they wish to table it. I don't think there's any harm from our perspective, but I don't know how their real estate transactions dealing on this and all that. So knowing how these work, sometimes people just like to get conditions out of the way, but that's a long answer. But if you wish to table it, if that's council's wish, that would be fine. But they are addressing the retained lot, so they need to do that anyway. So they would have that accomplished.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Any other questions, discussion? Martin?
Well, if they really want it and MTO does drag their feet, and he just said it was a risk on their part and not to us, why hold it and let it go, see what they do, and then a year down the road, it might all change in another different way. So there's no point putting a hold on it. So.
Yep. Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. The next item is the bylaw regarding the zoning bylaw amendment we just talked about. Mover and seconder, Barb and Jason. Bill, do you have anything further, or Victoria, to regards to the bylaw? No? Okay. Any questions from council? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. The next one is a zoning bylaw amendment regarding property by Paul Shirk. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Jim and Jason. Bill, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. This property is at 125517 Southgate Road 12. You held a public meeting on this, I want to say earlier this month. Can't remember the date exactly, but we had no negative comments on the proposal. There was support for it. We put a link in the report to remind you of what the Saugeen Valley comments were and the county comments. There is some environmental protection on the land, and they're asking for a buffer, but then that will be accomplished through the site plan process. And but we're recommending that the rezoning proceed if that's council's wish. And again, this is another on-farm diversified use. And it reaches the maximums that are allowed typically for these sorts of businesses. This has woodworking, metalworking, and other fabricating in the concrete area. So they're very busy proposal.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next item is the bylaw in regards to the zoning bylaw amendment that we just passed. Mover and seconder, please. Martin and Jason. Anything to add, Bill, Victoria? No? Okay. Any questions from council on the bylaw? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Victoria. It's always good to see you. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you and Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Thank you all.
Bylaws and motions, we have none. We have a notice of motion here from Councillor Shipston. I'm not going to read it unless the clerk insists that I read it. In that case, I'm not going to send you a Christmas present.
I think Martin should read it.
You want Martin to read it? Excellent. I like your thinking. I was going to get him to move this, but we'll start there. Martin, you wish to move this to put it on the floor?
I sure do.
Is there a seconder? Barb will second it. So Martin, I'll ask you to read the motion, and then if you wish to speak to it, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Whereas the downtown of Dundalk is an ongoing concern of the municipality, its residents and community groups. Excuse me. And whereas the township has staffed at its best through the strategic plan and community improvement plans for improvements. And whereas outside investors are major players in both residential and, more importantly, commercial properties. And whereas because of this fact, many buildings are left vacant to the point of dereliction. And whereas the township has removed the vacancy tax rebate and other cities and municipalities are adding 1 to 2% levies over and above the standard tax rates to vacant buildings, both residential and commercial. Now, be resolved that council and direct staff to research the feasibility of a 1 or 2% additional levy for vacant commercial and residential properties before the end of 2024. And if legal and applicable, place all monies received from 2024 levies and beyond to be applied to the economic development budget line as reserves or to be specifically earmarked for downtown revitalization. Long and wordy.
Yeah. You want to speak to it first or?
Yeah, this was something I was going to bring in with the last NOM, but I was told that bylaw, you can't really have two at one go unless it was an amendment. So I was more than willing to move it up. And it only came about again, because of the last meeting, all these things you're seeing on the news, vacancy rate. And I do want to clear, like, this is more for commercial or industrial, not the vacant residential. But a lot of cities and municipalities were putting forth recommendations to add it because it's the vacant building situation is rampant. But I guess this is more applicable, as I said at the beginning, to downtown Dundalk. And whether or not the fines with the building code, whether that, I think you just need something with a little bit more teeth into it. And I'm only asking that the staff, when they have time next year after budget, to look into if it can even be done. I did give a cash something from the tax table where, and it's the same, I use the city of Guelph and the township itself, where there's a line for vacant commercial, and then there's nothing for, or occupied commercial, and then there's no line for vacant commercial. And I figure, and a cash could answer that, I figured that's just because we had the rebate there. There was no need for a line. So I think it's something important. Because as I said, we're spending so much money on a cap and CIP, and it's not, you can't do anything without the people owning. So it's more of just staff having a look.
Okay. Thank you,
basically.
Martin.
Yep.
And to be clear, as Martin indicates, this is just to give staff direction to look into the feasibility of doing this. It's not to actually do it
Yeah.
at this point.
As I said, there might be legalities that we can't. Bill 170, I think that's when they said, okay,
Yeah.
you can have the right to get
Sure.
rid of the rebate
Yeah.
on the other side of the coin. Do we
Yeah.
have the right to pump it.
Right. Very good. Barb.
Thank you, through you. And I do recall, again, when we were having the discussion to remove the rebate, we had to go to the county. The county had to declare that to be the ability, a lot of water under the bridge since then, but we had discussed imposing a tax, a penalty, a deterrent to people speculating on these buildings and leaving them derelict and, not encouraging occupancy. And when the bylaw came from the building department to impose a self-registration so that you pay a fee, wouldn't be a fine, but a fee to allow your building to be vacant and follow all those rules. I don't know what the status or the uptake or how that has unfolded, because it's only been 6 months since that was maybe put into place. So I'm in favor of finding out if we're even permitted to impose a tax on vacant buildings, because what we have in place right now is voluntary. If we don't know the building's vacant, unless you come and knock, hey, my building's vacant and I want to pay $600 to keep it that way, I think this might act as more of a deterrent if in fact we're even permitted to do so. So if Akash is working on it with the county or legally, I wouldn't mind hearing back about it, because if we can certainly provide an impetus to keep their buildings in working order and occupied, it's so much better for the community.
Absolutely. Martin.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, that's one of the reasons why I said in 2024, because we don't know how well that bylaw thing is working. So by that time, we should have some kind of info on that. And one of the things about the vacant tax that some of the cities are getting a backlash with is just because of that logistics. How do you know who has a vacancy? And that's why I'm kind of primarily looking at shops and industrial places where you can tell that they are vacant. So it's just, if it's possible, then let's have a look at it. If not, then we just got to keep trying bugging them some other way.
Yep, for sure.
But I think on the tax bill, it has some teeth.
Yeah, for sure. Monica?
Hi, thank you. Through you, Chair. I just have two questions, but I'll just start with one. Is there a possibility for exploration for potential incentives and support mechanisms for property owners to repurpose or revitalize their vacant properties rather than solely relying on punitive measures? I know there was a mention about rebates. Was there anything, is that something still active, or was there any exploration again for incentives?
Brenna, do you want to take a run at that? Maybe, please?
Sorry, Monica,
That's
would
okay.
you be able to just repeat the question?
Of course, no problem. And I should have said through you, Chair, to Economic Development, but I wasn't sure, to be honest, who to direct it to, but thanks for that. Just with regards to the exploration for potential incentives or support mechanisms for property owners to repurpose or revitalize their vacant properties rather than solely relying on punitive measures.
Yes, I would say that those types of incentives are highlighted in our CIP to update the buildings of property owners. It's just a matter of whether that property owner wants to invest, because for the most part, our CIP is a matching grant where we're willing to cover 50% of the costs up to a certain maximum. So those are the incentives that we have, unless you were referring to other specific.
I guess just,
incentives.
if there's any further exploration, just maybe in doing the feasibility report, if that would be an area of looking into it further. If that, in addition to something else, that would encourage, instead of going down like just the punitive measures. And just a follow up, Chair, just through you, Chair, to EDO. With regards to like the allocation of funds for the economic development budget or the downtown revitalization, with regards to trying to word this properly, is there an allocation of funds that can be used in a more strategic and targeted approach to maximize the impact of the surtax? So the allocation of funds, is there an area where funds could be used? Or is there even money available that would, let's see here. I wrote it down and I'm trying to make it make sense what I was trying to say here. 1 second. So is it highlighting the need for a strategic and targeted approach to maximize the impacts of the surtax? Maybe this is something that I could like send to you, and then if it's something that needs to bring to the council, but I guess it's just seeing if there's maybe money that could be moved around to help more with this.
Mhm.
And if I could.
Yes.
I think if you, the last line or the now therefore be it resolved piece, it says any monies collected from the punitive, if somebody leaves their building empty, right? Any money that resolves or it results from those would go into a reserve or something specifically to revitalize the downtown.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's where you're headed with that.
Yes. Okay, thanks for the
But
connection.
that's going to be part, if we support this, that's going to be part of the investigation to find out, can we do it? And if we do, maybe how much money might be result from it? And what do we do with that money then?
Perfect.
I think that's, if
Yeah.
I'm understanding correct, that's the
Yeah.
intent. Yes.
Okay, thank
Brenna,
you.
did you have anything?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there's possibilities if that's viable. There's various reserves, either the CIP reserve, or we also have our Southgate facade reserve. So it could be entered into that to increase possibilities for other business owners to utilize that money for future improvements. Another option, I could look into other amendments to the CIP or other programming that might specifically target vacancy. That's something I could look into. Thank you.
Barb.
Thank you. And it might be worth noting at this point, because I mean, Councillor Singh Sori, it's a really good question. If historically the rebate by the province allowed us to implement a rebate program to allow for the building owners time to update their facilities, make them, more attractive, and so that they would be able then to rent them more easily. But it basically had the opposite effect. It gave them permission to leave their buildings vacant and then speculate on land prices. They were buying up full buildings and just leaving them. So when the province allowed us permission to remove that rebate, and how do we encourage them? We got the community improvement plan, and I believe the county has a tax assessment deferral program where if you update your building and it results in a change in assessment, so you've increased the value of your property through the commercial business, it can be eligible to defer that change in taxation for up to 10 years. And it gradually depletes till you're paying 100%. So that incentive is already in place. And then we have conversion opportunities through the community improvement plan. And I think through our building zoning, commercial buildings, we actually did one on Main Street where they converted a portion that was commercial to residential to help improve affordable, attainable housing or apartment. And so those are all possibilities. I think that we've been working toward that. Hopefully with this new application, the CIP will be more attractive to people trying to figure it out. And, I think this council's always been open to all kinds of options to help the businesses in downtown Dundalk or in Holstein or throughout our municipality improve their ability to deliver. So I'll look forward to more.
Thank you. Did I see your hand up, Jason?
Well, yeah, I was
Brenna.
just, oh, sorry, go.
No.
Actually, maybe Barb just stand, like, is it a Dundalk thing or is it throughout, like, that's what I thought. I'm just wondering, I get what we're trying to do. And back to Barb's first point, like, how do you enforce it? Like, does bylaw, like, the 1 or 2%, is it really gonna, are we just chasing money to,
Well, and
like?
I would hope that's what the feasibility would
Yeah,
study would tell us.
so
Like,
that's
is
my
it,
only,
is it feasible?
that's what I mean.
Right.
I don't know if it would be or not.
Yeah, I don't know
so,
either.
It's a good idea, I think, but
I'll go
I mean,
to,
if we're getting 1%, it's costing us 6%, that's.
I was gonna say 5%.
right?
But
So I'll go to the clerk first and then Monica.
Now, just to comment on that, it would be interesting because that would be collected through taxes. The other would be bylaw that would go after them. So, and that was kind of why we were more or less piloting our vacant building bylaw just to see. We kept it low to begin with, so see where it lands.
Monica.
Yes, thank you. Just a comment, just to, I don't know, wrap it up, like tie it up a bit, is that anything that's going to help to support addressing the issue of vacant properties in downtown Dundalk is, as we all know, is so critical to community development. So is there, I mean, we always need time, more time than less, but is there a timeline for the feasibility studies that we could expect as a council for the comprehensive finding? Through you, Chair, to EDO or clerk.
Well, it won't be either of us doing the feasibility study. That would fall to the finance department, but I mean, it would take quite a bit of research, I think. They're quite busy right now with a lot of budgeting, audit, that sort of stuff, and a new audit will just start again. So I think leaving it before the end of 2024, it leaves it a bit open-ended. I see what you're saying, but I think they would appreciate it if it was left at that rather than a hard stop timeline.
Okay.
Martin.
Yeah, and that
Thank
was
you.
my respect, because I know the finance department's going through state of flux and there's budget and there's all kinds of stuff. So that's why I said by then in 2024. And also that by that time, because of the bylaw fines and things, by that time, we'll know if that works. And if it doesn't work, then it's redundant, and let's just have the tax. And that's basically trying to find out which best works. We don't want duplication.
Sure, and
You know what I mean?
And on that note, since we brought that bylaw in 1st of September, I'm thinking it was, obviously there wasn't a lot of voluntary uptake with it. So staff are currently getting ready, or we are putting forward a more targeted approach with that in the new year. So we'll hopefully start seeing some registrations and some compliance through that bylaw. But like you said, Councillor Shipston, to your point, we'll just see how it works, and if it works, and if it doesn't, then we can go back to the drawing board.
Very good. Jason.
Maybe I've heard, do we have any idea, I don't know who before, what the vacancy rate is, or?
No idea.
Like,
I know where it's vacant, it looks vacant.
yeah, no, I just wondered if anybody knew that.
Yeah, I don't know. Barb?
And to that point, the buildings that are vacant it's obvious that they're vacant and they're chronic. And that if this was even possible, that would be an easy, we know you're vacant, you're avoiding us.
Yep.
Here's the increased taxation, and maybe then they'd come to the table, but time will tell.
Time will tell. Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brenna, for your help, and Lindsay on that one. Thank you. Consent items, regular business. There are 5 sets of minutes there, 3 from planning and 2 from committee of adjustment. Someone care to, does anyone wish any of those be removed for further discussion? Nope. Someone want to move acceptance? Jason and Jim, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. The next is correspondence for information. There are 3 items there. Does anybody wish any of those removed for further discussion? No. Mover to accept. Martin and Barb, discussion. All those in favor? Oh, Barb, go ahead.
Sorry, through you. I just wanted to add something new with regard to the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority and the minutes. If anyone is interested, they now offer a meeting summary on the website, and it can be found under the saugeenconservation.ca About Us tab. if anybody is, looking for more reading. And certainly, I did want to provide an update with regard to a recent announcement that the province has communicated that the conservation authorities in Ontario, 36 conservation authorities, fee structure has been frozen again, and they waited until after the budgets were finalized. So we are looking, all of the conservation authorities will be revisiting their budgets and trying to figure out how, once again, they're going to deliver in a timely fashion their obligation and their mandatory reporting.
Timing is everything. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Final consent item is resolutions from other municipalities. There are 1, 2, 3, 5. Anybody wish any of those removed for further discussion? No? Somebody want to move? Martin and Jason, Jim? Almost, not quite. Yeah, exactly. Any discussion on those items? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have no closed session regarding resolutions. County report. The email or the website is there. The county did in fact pass their, well, at least they directed staff to bring the bylaw forward early January with an impact of, I think it was $68.29 for the average household in Grey County. That's the increase, which represents 6.3% roughly. So that it will not help the lower tiers a whole lot, but there was a lot of discussion, two full days of discussion back and forth, but that's where we landed, which on one hand, I think we could have left it a little higher, but I'm okay with that. So that's where we landed. Barb.
Through you, if I could add,
Absolutely.
unless you were going to
Nope,
add
go
it
ahead.
yourself. Some good news is that the county approved the community improvement plan funds to be extended to 2028. So we have more time to use those funds that we have in reserve. There was an update to the surplus lands project in that we supported, or county supported, options to explore selling or granting surplus lands throughout the county. So working with the lower tier municipalities to consider selling or leasing public held lands for market rate housing. While the discussion is still going to have to happen and the exploration continues, it is very much high on the priority housing. So I think that's good news to hold on to.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding county stuff? Okay. Did we vote on that? Oh, no, that's right. Sorry. Members' privilege. Good news. Anybody got any good news they wish to share? Celebrations? Barb, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to, because it's our last meeting of the year, and I just wanted to wish council and staff and our community a very Merry Christmas, all the best for the holidays. And I also want to give a shout out to all those who continue to work over the holidays to keep our roads clear so that we can spend time with family and friends. The garbage collection, thank you, Lindsay. There will be adjustments, so check I noticed that we got our collection calendar in the mail, so make sure that you put that on your fridge and check that out, because there is a few changes for next week. So thank you very much. It has been a whirlwind of a year.
Indeed. Anyone else? Okay, there's no closed meeting for today. One final bylaw. Monica, thank you. Seconder? Jim? All those in favor? That's the confirming bylaw. Thank you. One final motion. Jason and Monica. All those in favor?